And we are live for QB Appy Hour today. Yay! And I'm so excited about today's session. We're going to be talking about common issues for not-for-profit companies, and we have Bradley here from Kindful to join us. So this is going to be an awesome conversation.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, we talked earlier today and we talked last week, and we've just got some really, really cool stuff in store for you guys today. I'm super duper excited about today's episode. So we got lots of people joining us today too. So awesome. All right. Let me go ahead and share up my screen so we can get started with our presentation today. So it looks like we got a bunch of people joining us via our Zoom. We've got Amanda, and I see MB Raimondi. Hi, MB. We had MB on the show a couple of months ago. Great to see her. And Tiffany Stewart. Hi, Tiffany. Okay, so we are here for Appy Hour. Welcome. Let's get this party started. Super excited about today's drink. I actually took a little taste of it earlier, and oh my goodness, it's so good. I cheated because I couldn't help it because it was so cool. All right. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Heather Satterley with Satterley Training Consulting. So I have a firm in Portsmouth, Rhode Island, and I focus on helping people implement apps and automate their workflows using technology. So I've been a QuickBooks Pro Advisor for a really long time, since the 90s. And I love nothing more than tinkering with new technology and helping people make their lives easier. So I'm really excited to be with you guys today.
Same thing, me too. So in Oklahoma, I've got an accounting practice and we focus on QuickBooks. And I had a pleasure of talking to MB this morning and sharing with MB that right now, you know, here's my normal workload and here's my workload right now. So it's really busy right now for many of us because we've got the April 15th deadline, and a lot of our clients who have been quiet and not submitting all of the requested docs are submitting them all of a sudden.
Yep.
So it's like everybody woke up and said, oh, you mean April 15th is coming? Okay. So it's been fun.
Yeah, it's been crazy. It's been really quiet, or quieter than normal on social media, I noticed the last couple of days, because people are kind of have their heads down and they're working towards that, towards that deadline. So how's your day been today, Bradley?
It's been great. We have a beautiful day here in Nashville. It's like 78 degrees, and we don't face the same issues that you guys face in terms of workload. We just got through a really busy season with people getting renewed nonprofit budgets and looking for new technology. We're still staying pretty busy, but definitely not dealing with the tax crunch.
Yeah, not-for-profits have that, year-end tax, just like we have 1099s. We have to do those year-end tax letters, and there's a lot and you're right, the budget. So the ones that have the calendar year-end are putting their budgets together. So it is a busy time in the early months of the year for a lot of not-for-profits.
Mm-hmm.
So huge thank you to you, Bradley, and to Kindful for joining us today. I think this is really needed. I think that even if a pro advisor or accountant doesn't specialize in not-for-profits, we almost always interact with not-for-profits. And so really understanding the issues that these businesses are facing is super important, I think, to everyone in our profession. Wouldn't you agree, Liz?
I do. And, what I'm going to add to that is just in the development of this content for this webinar, I learned some things, and I can't wait to share some of those, and I'll share with you whenever I had those aha moments. And our firm does not work with many nonprofits. We have, but not very many. And so even if you don't do a lot with nonprofits, this is great information. And if you do a lot with nonprofits, then this is going to be super information, because you're going to get to know some more details about how to and how it could be so much better.
Absolutely. And I'm the treasurer for 2 not-for-profits. So I'm right in the trenches, dealing with a lot of the stuff that we're going to be talking about today. So I also, putting some of this content together, learned a few things, and I'm super excited to see Kindful. And I think definitely for one of the organizations that I'm treasurer of, we're kind of I don't want to say we're a temporary organization, but we were formed to do a specific project. But the other organization, we could benefit so much from the features in Kindful. I'm excited, Bradley, for you to show everybody how Kindful can help these nonprofit organizations, increase their funding, reach the right people that can help them to reach their mission, which is super important.
Yeah, and I'm super excited to be joining you guys. We have a great relationship with QuickBooks, and I work with many pro advisors and things like that. And we have a little bit of a different perspective because we're not an accounting based software. In that we're an enhancement to QuickBooks. So I'm really excited just to share kind of what we bring to the table.
Absolutely, awesome. All right, so our agenda, we're going to do our welcome, which we just did. So welcome, everybody. And then we're going to dive right into the common issues facing not-for-profits. Then we're going to go ahead and raise our toast. Liz has a really, really coolest thing that she did this month. And then we're going to talk about upcoming episodes and also some new changes. We actually did a little revamp, a little mini facelift to our webpage. So, and we have a whole bunch of awesome sponsors lined up over the next month. So I am so excited to share all of that with everybody. So again, thank you everybody for taking time out of your super busy schedule, especially this week for joining us today. We're so happy that you're here. All right, so common issues facing not-for-profit companies. I'm going to start off the presentation today talking about three main areas that I think a lot of, I would say most not-for-profits deal with, and that's data security. So, keeping your data secure and also safeguarding donor information, right? Fraud is very rampant in the nonprofit sector. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to dive into revenue generation and donor management. And that's really where I'm going to be handing things over to, Bradley to kind of talk about those a little bit deeper. So his presentation is absolutely amazing. I've learned so much going through the deck with you today, Bradley. I can't wait for everybody else to get all those wonderful takeaways. So let's dive in first and talk about data security. So I don't know about the rest of you, but with the not-for-profits that I've worked with during my career, one of the biggest things that I see is weak password policies, right? Is that a lot of these organizations, they have one username and password for everything that everybody shares. And that really does put the organization at risk, right? So, having a password policy for the organization and really, not encouraging the volunteers and the staff to share that information in QuickBooks Online and in all the other apps that they're using is super important. Because once a not-for-profit's database and their information is compromised, that can do a lot of damage to that organization, right? And people are going to be less likely to want to, engage with that organization if they know that they've had a breach. It really does, I think, tarnish their image.
I think that's a huge point. And so I think that, we don't always hear about all the fraud because people are embarrassed that they let it happen. So I think the numbers are bigger than what is even submitted because people are embarrassed.
No, I think you're right. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more as well. Lack of antivirus and malware protection. I think that especially for the smaller organizations, they don't know, right? And I think, they don't, a lot of small not-for-profits and medium not-for-profits, they want to be very mindful of their budgets, right? And so a lot of times they'll scrimp, they'll use somebody's personal account, they'll use unlicensed software, unsupported software in order to cut costs. And really they're putting their organization at risk for, really for litigation too. If you're using unlicensed software, that can really harm an organization as well. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into each of these. As always, if you guys have anything to contribute, please do. Mallory's bringing up that Apple's computers are more secure, right? So I think the way I understand it is that Apple computers are less susceptible. I can't say one word. Liz, because I can't quite get it out.
Susceptible.
to viruses, but I think they have the same internet security issues that any computer user would have. So I think people have to be very mindful.
And one thing to add there, is that phishing techniques, which are techniques to help, gather your password information and stuff like that, have got so unfortunately good, right? And so, I know we got one the other day that that someone caught, and that was a one that looked like it was trying to reset your Google password or something. And one of the things we were discussing earlier today is if you're storing your donors' information in like Google Sheets and things like that, then you're really risking not only your information but your donors' contact information, which can be pretty scary. And you kind of have a fiduciary information or fiduciary responsibility to keep that data as secure as possible.
Right. Yeah. No. And Michael McClellan he's sharing a URL to a website that can help nonprofits know if they've had a breach. So that's that's something that everybody's going to want to copy and paste onto it, somewhere, so you can share that out with your clients. And then Murph is saying, hackers typically haven't wasted their time, right, with Apple because it was a small user base, right, compared to Windows computers. But I think that's changing. So who knows when that's gonna change. So. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about these. One of the things that I found when I was researching for this particular episode is, password apps are life-changing. I love my password app. I have it on my phone. I have it on all my devices. You do have to shop very wisely for password apps and make sure that they are reputable, that, that they are secure, and ask around. But this one I found is Password Boss. I have not used it, but what was really great about this app was that they have a free program, a Pass It On program. So they'll give their app free to not-for-profits on their platform. You have to apply for it. So you have to apply for it. You have to be a 501c3 organization. I think they said when I went out to the website that hospitals and healthcare organizations and governmental agencies they don't qualify for this, but it allows you to keep track of not only the organization's passwords, but everybody's, you can deploy passwords, right, to the people in the organization that need them. So they're not actually seeing the password, they just get the login credentials. And you can apply there. It includes all licenses and all premium features. One of the things that we were talking about today, Liz, as far as passwords, was one of the benefits of having everybody having their own unique password is the audit trails, right?
Yep.
If we all share the same username and password and we're all logging in as the same person, it'd be very difficult to detect fraud, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so being able to know who's accessing the data and when they access the data is really important. And so one of the things that we often see is people go, our owners especially are really bad at it. They go, well, it's just too difficult for me to have my own user. What's your user? And so they'll ask somebody in the office, or vice versa. The office admin will get the owner's username and password. And we see that so often, that they're using the same login.
Yeah.
But you don't want to say, oh, I guess we're going to, possibly need to protect ourselves and fraud might happen. But it's the truth. This happens. We've got to be protected.
And it is really important too to safeguard donor information, right? So on the boards that I'm on, we had, when we first started our organization, we're forming it, our attorney who sits on our board, was talking to us about the fact that we actually have a responsibility to make sure that we're storing all of our donor information in a place where it can't get hacked, where people can't get access to it. And there are pretty hefty fines when that can happen. So that's something that even very small not-for-profits need to be very aware of, that, if you're sharing your donor lists, in a free Google account or something like that, that may not meet the requirements to safeguard your donor data. So,
well, and we've got a good question that we've been asked is Password Boss only a US-based business for US-based nonprofits? And I'm looking at their website right now, and I don't see anything that supports that they're just US-based.
No.
Can you answer that?
Well, when in my research, if you see the first bullet on this slide, it says qualified international organizations.
Okay.
They do support international organizations. And what they said, to qualify as an international organization, you have to provide proof that you're a qualified nonprofit and that you have those credentials from, from whatever country it is. Qualify as an international. Oh, is that coming from my machine or?
It's not. I've got it muted.
Okay, then I'm thinking I have mine muted too, so I'm not sure where that was coming from. I think we're okay now. You good now?
Awesome. It's not. Oh, I've got it muted.
Okay, then I'm thinking I have mine muted too. So Bradley, do you have yours muted? I definitely have mine muted.
I think it was when Liz mutes her mic, it goes away. So I think it, unfortunately, has maybe something to do with Liz's.
Okay. Maybe you've got it open somewhere else. You don't realize, Liz. Okay. All right.
Open on Facebook, that because it did sound quite delayed, so it may have been Facebook coming through.
Yeah, and that's happened to me before, where I've gone to answer a question on Facebook and it started playing the video. So that sometimes happens. The other thing that I wanted to share with the group is TechSoup. If you guys haven't heard of TechSoup.org, this is a website where not-for-profits, qualified not-for-profits can buy discounted and sometimes free software, hardware, and other resources, tech resources for not-for-profits. So you can go out and find antivirus software, Windows, all kinds of resources out there that can save your clients money. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that you can get QuickBooks licenses, both desktop and QuickBooks Online, for $50 a year on TechSoup. So your challenge would be is if you're not-for-profit, and I see this all the time, where a not-for-profit has already signed up for a subscription with Intuit, and you can't migrate a paid account to one of these licenses. You would actually have to do migration using an app in order to get that data over. So
I have to say, this was news to me. I did not realize that you can get a desktop product for $50 if you're a nonprofit. No idea. This is fantastic.
It is fantastic. Let's see. Catherine is sharing that once the not-for-profit organization signs up with TechSoup, they will not qualify for the wholesale billing on payroll. So that's interesting to know. So thank you for sharing that, Catherine. That's important. So and that's on payroll. Interesting. So, okay. Good to know. So if they need payroll, you're going to want to consider that. So that's just one example of the benefits, on TechSoup. So if you have not checked that out, I think every not-for-profit should know about TechSoup. You can save a ton of money, and there's a lot of resources up there. All right, the next part of this presentation is we're going to talk about some features in QuickBooks Online for not-for-profits. So there is, you may or may not know this, there actually is a not-profit edition of QuickBooks Online, and the way that you activate that edition is that you select for the tax form 990. And what that does is that changes the name of the profit and loss and balance sheet reports, and then all of the associated detail reports to the statement of activities and statement of financial position. So, this is the driver. It used to be that you had to select the industry type, the tax form, and then tax type in two places. You did it once on the company screen and then once in the advanced screen. They seem to have fixed that. I found that when I was researching this, that they seem to have fixed that and actually carries over from the company settings now. So what you see on the advanced settings actually carries over from the company settings, which is an improvement. I think any place that we can, we have less work to do is good in my book, is okay in my book. The other thing that you can do for your not-for-profit clients in QBO is you can change the nomenclature of the customer list and the sales forms. So you can go into the advanced settings in QuickBooks Online and then select donors, members, any one of those would be whatever makes sense for that particular not-for-profit. And what that does is it changes the customer list to donor list, and then you would see the word donor in in the UI inside QuickBooks Online instead of customer. The other thing that you can do is if you edit your templates in QuickBooks Online and you go to the gear icon custom form styles, you can change the form names. So this used to happen automatically. When I tested it, and in the not-for-profits that I really do work with, it actually does say pledge, and it does say, I think the sales receipt still says sales receipt. But in the testing that I did preparing for today, it didn't do that. So I felt like I should show people how to override it in case QuickBooks decides it's not going to do it. And that would be done in the custom form styles. So you'll just come into the content tab and then change the invoice and sales receipt for whatever you choose. The other cool thing that I found, I don't think many people know this, and I can't demo it because I don't have QuickBooks open right now, but did you know that you can change your template, the fields that are on your template right on the invoice screen in QuickBooks? At the top right of the screen. You can do it by going down to customize and then selecting it, but up at the top of the screen, there's a little gear icon, and it's a really fast way to add and remove fields to your form that you're actually, to the form that you're actually on. So,
I think that so many of us are trained to do it through the form style templates.
Right.
That's what we end up doing, but you're right. I mean, it's a nice little handy tip, especially for our end users.
And Sarah's saying nonprofits have multiple types of customers, donors, advertisers, program fees. Can we have multiple invoices and SR templates? Yes. So you can have multiple templates. And then you would just select which template you want to use, which form template you want to use when you click on that customize at the bottom of the sales form screen. So as you're entering it in, you would select that.
Well, and you know that we can now store multiple logos inside of QuickBooks. And so I haven't tried it yet, but I wonder if you could make an invoice, put that logo on there, and then use that template with that logo, and then create another template for the different types of things that you do. Maybe you needed a different logo to clarify.
Well, you have customer types now in QuickBooks Online as well, which is something that's new within the last
year and a half.
Year. Yeah. And then finally, for keeping track of programs, different projects and fundraising, we can use projects, locations, and classes. And we just wanted to point out, the list limits they're going to be enforced on the 10th, right? That's when that kicks in, which is what, tomorrow? That's where we're going to be held to that 250 accounts in our chart of accounts and 40 total classes or locations in QuickBooks Online Plus before we have to upgrade, to advanced. So there's a great article on farmofthefuture.com that Erin Walsh-Dyer wrote that is all about there's strategies to keep yourself under those limits. So what can you do inside QuickBooks to make sure that you don't have to upgrade to QuickBooks Online Advanced? So check that out. I do have that. Maybe Liz, you can grab. I pasted that link to that in the deck, but I can't get to the Advanced. So maybe you could copy and paste it into the chat.
I'll be happy to.
All right. So that was my little segue on QuickBooks Online. The next thing, and I want to pick up the pace a little bit, is I want to talk about fraud. Fraud. 12% of fraud cases, and I got this from one source, but I found that it was pretty common across the different articles that I was reading about this. About 12% of fraud cases occur in not-for-profit organizations overall, which is a pretty big percentage. The median loss is $100,000. Payroll and check tampering are more common in not-for-profit companies than other companies. And the top fraudulent activities include skimming, right? So if you have an event where you collect cash, they take a couple 20s out of the till before they actually record that information. So, segregation of duties is really important. Credit card abuse and fictitious vendor schemes. So the pictures that you see on the screen are people that have either been accused publicly. I didn't hunt them down. These are publicly, this is from a quick Google search. But all of these people here were either accused or actually in court this week on fraud charges related to a not-for-profit. And I felt like that was pretty impactful that I was able to find, just in the past week, this many people that are are hurting our not-for-profits and the donors. So
that's mind-boggling. That is mind-boggling to me that in 1 week those are the people that have been posted, and just
Right.
as quick Google search. So, there's lots more out there.
Exactly.
And this goes back to that thing that we were talking about earlier, that not everybody is admitting that they've had fraud, because one, it's embarrassing that you let it happen. And two, it hurts your business.
It does.
So a lot of times, nobody actually opens the door to say, I've had fraud happen. They quietly let that person go. And then that person gets hired by another entity to come in, and they do the same thing again.
Right. No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And even at Kindful, I mean, we recently had the FBI reach out to us in an investigation for a employee at a organization who, luckily we get put in a position in situations like that where we, by our terms of service, we can't share any of the data without the organization's permission. But the organization did give us the permission, and we were able to provide a series of logs that helped in the court case to actually prove that the individual was indeed stealing from the organization. So again, those, stuff is, it's really scary. And if you go back to what we were talking about earlier about password protection and stuff like that, like if you're all sharing a password, then it's really hard to prove who, was a person doing malicious activity.
Absolutely. I mean, it is. It's very difficult to spot variances. And find that. So I think it's up to us as the accounting professionals, right, to help our clients understand the importance of segregation of duties, the importance of making sure they have good internal controls, and finding good partners like Kindful that are going to help us to make sure that we, don't, have that. If we do have fraud, they're going to help us find it. I think that's definitely the sign of a great partner, that you're able to go in and do that for them.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. So some tips to prevent fraud. One thing, I have a story that I'll share. I had a not-for-profit that I worked with years ago, and they wrote checks. They had a checkbook, and they didn't lock the checkbook up, right? And as an accounting professionals, we all say, lock up your checks, right? So the cleaning company had come in, and somebody in the cleaning company decided to check out the checkbook. And I think they were computer printed checks, actually. It wasn't an actual checkbook. It was computer printed checks. And they stole a couple $1,000s by writing checks, on the nonprofit's account. So using an accounts payable app with approvals is really, really important, because you're getting that segregation of duties. Somebody can put the bill in, and then somebody in the organization, the treasurer, the director, whatever, would approve it and look at the bill, approve it, and then it gets sent electronically. So you're less likely to have that misappropriation of funds, right?
Great point.
Yeah. And then using digital payments for donations too, right? When you have a lot of cash, somebody, I think Liz, you were saying this morning that people don't mean, like, they never set out to steal.
Right. And so, one of the things that we've seen internally in the accounting firm is that people don't say, I can't wait to go and steal money. Usually it's more of, hey, I think I'm going to pay it back. So they just take the little bit of money with the intention of paying it back. And then they didn't get caught. And so they're thinking, hey, well, I'll just take a little bit more and I'll pay it back. So I don't think the majority of people are looking to embezzle funds. I think that it just happens because they think it's not really going to hurt anybody because they're going to pay it back.
Right.
And so one of the things that happens is cash is a big, big thing that gets taken. And it's easy to take cash and then put cash back with the intention. But if there's no tracking of cash, then it's easy to not understand where it went. And one of the things that we've seen happen was there was a association that most of all of these team players were paying in cash. And so there was lots of teams, and then there was these players, and the players, their parents would give money to the teams, and then those teams would give money to the association for the dues. Well, the cash wouldn't always make it to the association level. And so sometimes the money would just disappear on the team level. Mm-hmm. There's no accounting of that individual person. Sometimes the cash would disappear on the association level. So there's no accounting of the individual player. Where one of the things I love about doing online payments is that you're submitting the payment online. It's automatically being tied to an account. That account can then be tracked back to who paid, when they paid, and to verify that all expected funds have came in.
Yeah, and payment platforms like PayPal and some of the others actually have discounted rates for not-for-profits. So just let your clients know about that. I know PayPal definitely has that. If you fill out the paperwork and send them, your 501c3 determination letter, then you can get lower rates on the processing. And then Kindful has low-cost ACH, right?
Yeah, so we have payment processing built in. We also integrate with tools like Square and PayPal and Stripe and all those, so you can do payment processing the way you would like. But one point I'll add too is that taking credit cards for many people is just convenient now. Right? In terms, obviously still a lot of people love to write a check for an end of year appeal and things like that, but in terms of if you're, so many, I think we did a recent survey, and the second or third the biggest way non-for-profits are earning funds from people are through events. And so at events, if you're doing auctions and things like that, the ability to register someone's credit card and then versus having them have to come to a checkout at the end of an event just streamlines the process, and it creates, to your point, Liz, this paper trail that goes directly to that individual within the system, which is super, super valuable, right?
I love that you have that. That's fantastic.
And you can get, with some of these, you can get the little dongle for your phone, and they can actually, at an event, you can just be running donations through, so you're not taking any cash. Because anytime you're taking cash, you're opening yourself up to errors and to fraud. So.
And, human errors, really, it's even during times whenever I've been in charge of Little League events and a parent gives me a wad of cash, I'm like, can you give this to me later whenever I've got a chance to write it down? This is what I do. I like things in their place, but even I can't do all of it at one time. So it doesn't make sense to take cash.
Right. Definitely.
My local Girl Scout cookies takes credit cards now. So if we're
love that.
I walked out of Kroger's the other day, I didn't get cash, and she was like, I've got a credit card swiper, and I was like,
amazing.
Give me some boxes.
I love it. So we already talked about passwords. We definitely don't want to do that. You want to check the voided deleted transaction report as part of the period end process. So if you're using QuickBooks in either QuickBooks Online Desktop, check that voided deleted transaction report to see what's happening. See if people are creating transactions and then deleting them, especially cash transactions. And as much as possible, I say segregation of duties. And, with really small not-for-profits, this is really hard because they're completely run by volunteers, and it's hard to have a lot of people involved, but it's so important. So just having one person prepare the deposit and having another one to the bank is just super important. So as much as you can, you should do that for sure.
And
I would add to that, especially on the volunteer front, Kindful does have a data entry only role. So you're able to enter data, but not modify data, right? Which is, one of the things that our clients have been asking for years. We finally released last year that people love, because they can give volunteers kind of a low risk ability to enter and check receipts and stuff like that. That's really, really, and then push that data right into QuickBooks instead of having them logged in.
Awesome. Yeah. So the next section, I'm just doing a segue. I'm sorry, Liz.
No, I was just thumbs up. I'm all about a digital trail, an audit log. Yeah,
definitely. So revenue generation and donor management, that's what it's all about, right? Is that these not-for-profits exist to raise money to fulfill their purpose, to fulfill their mission. And so where I've seen it, and I know that you've seen it much more, Bradley, which is why Kindful exists, is that maintaining communication with with your donors and the right donors is really hard to do. Especially when you're on that shoestring budget and you're dependent on volunteers. Organization of the donor information, that year-end tax reporting can be a real chore if you don't have your records set up a certain way, right? Or you don't use the right type of apps. Different fundraising platforms, a lot of times they're taking money from everywhere, right? So trying to connect that into a central location can be really cumbersome. You know, you forget. I know a not-for-profit I was working with for a while, they didn't even have their PayPal on their books. Like it wasn't even part of their financial statements. And so, you know, getting that connected was really, you know, was really important because it was money that was coming in that they weren't even accounting for. So making sure that everything's in one place is really important. And, you know, the reporting and analytics too, understanding where are the best sources for funding. I mean, if you have a QuickBooks file, that's great. You can see a little bit of that. You can see a little bit of who's donated, assuming that your customer list is nice and tidy. If you have the same donor in 10 times, then you may not have the full picture of, of what the potential is for that particular donor. But making sure that everything's nice and tidy and that things are connected is super, super important. And you were telling me earlier, Bradley, about a service that you guys do in Kindful where, I was telling you that a pain point for me was I'd send out all these tax letters for the donations at the end of the year. And a lot of those tax letters came back to us because the person had moved. And I felt like every time I got one back, I was like 50 cents, 50 cents, 50 cents, right? Because we're so small, we don't have a nonprofit. We don't get the nonprofit rate. And so that's really expensive. You were telling me that you guys offer a service, well, they'll do the address.
So we have a service provider that will provide national change of address. So it's a U.S. database, but it's actually using the USPS change of address service, right? And so what you're able to do within Kindful, and it is additional charge to our service, but most organizations do it at the end of the year or right before their big, let's say they're doing a big spring event, whatever their big fundraising event is, especially if they do a lot with direct mail, they're going to reach out to us and we just charge them a one-time fee. And within about a week, you get back, we scrub the whole database. You say, hey, here's all the list of people we want to, and you just create a group in Kindful. And typically it is group equals anyone with a mailing address. and then we just run it through the system, and it comes back and says, hey, out of your, let's say 1,000 donors, 73 of them have changed addresses. Would you like to accept these changes? You click yes, and it, updates all the addresses automatically. And so like that's, but to your point, 73 times 50 cents, right? Like you're getting in, and then the donations you may miss out on because they don't receive your letter.
Exactly.
All of that adds up really quickly.
It really does. It really does. So that's all I got so I'm going to hand things over. First, I mean, we've already introduced you, Bradley, but if you want to just kind of give a little bit more and let people know a little more what your role is with Kindful, and then we're going to raise a toast.
Yeah, so that's great. I'm excited. My ice is almost all the way melted. And so, my name is Bradley Martin, and I lead the sales and marketing here at Kindful. And really, my goal is I spend all of my time and effort trying to think about how can we introduce Kindful to nonprofit organizations that we may be a fit for. There are a slew of great tools out there, and we're not a great fit for every organization, and we know that. We just are looking more to say, let's be part of the conversation and see if we could be a good fit. So my my goal is just to introduce us to many as nonprofits as possible.
I love that. We just got a fantastic question. So Kathy asked us, so does Kindful send out any type of automated thank you letters?
Yeah, so especially with any donation, so the nice thing about Kindful is it tracks offline, online donations through Eventbrite and all those different things, and you can set different settings based on the source of the donation for different letters to go out. So it can be just an email, or it can be it'll start to produce a list of, let's say, acknowledgments to send, and you can print those, do a mail merge right within Kindful, and then print all of those letters out like on a weekly basis to send or you can do both. You can do an email receipt and a printed letter.
What a time saver. As somebody who actually does that for 2 organizations, huge time saver.
Right. Well, because, one of the things that you're doing is you're acting on people's charity. So being able to say thank you for that, that's huge.
Definitely.
Fantastic.
Definitely.
Ooh. So it's our fruity
Here's
time.
our beautiful drink,
Yes.
our Kindful Breeze. And I have mine in a martini glass.
Okay, here's mine.
Yeah.
Oh, yours looks beautiful too.
I can't wait. It's got chunks of cantaloupe in it. Now I'm missing the mint.
I actually took my cantaloupe and I put it in the freezer to make little cantaloupe ice cubes. And just because we do this, Bradley, what I do is I stick my ice in this Yeti until right before I'm going to drink it. And that way
you're such an expert.
Right, we're pros at this.
So I will say, I did bartend for a couple of years. I wouldn't consider myself like a mixologist, but I made a slight modification in that I didn't have anything to actually puree cantaloupe with at the office. So I used ginger beer and then muddled a piece of cantaloupe with mint before I poured the beer in. So I've got the vodka ginger beer instead of the grated ginger. And,
oh my goodness. I love ginger beer. I love it. So that would be a great addition. You know, I've never had ginger beer until Appy Hour.
Right, and the Moscow Mule, right?
Yes, that was my first one.
Mary Mule. Yes.
So
this is basically a cantaloupe mint Moscow Mule. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I love that.
That was my very first mule, ginger mule, and I loved it. So now I love ginger beer all the time.
All right. So cheers to Kindful. Thank you for helping all the not-for-profits.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Organized.
Okay, so I want to say something. So Mallory's got a comment. So one of the things that we wanted to also mention is that some of these drinks, you know, we make them, but they don't have to always have alcohol in them. So it is daytime for some people. If you don't want to put booze in yours, you don't have to. Heather, you said you didn't in yours today.
Well, I ended up putting a little bit in there.
But you don't have to, is the point.
But you didn't. I mean, this would be absolutely delicious without any alcohol in it whatsoever. So we absolutely don't have to, you know, Appy Hour is Appy Hour. It doesn't have to have alcohol in it.
Yeah. Appy Hour is all about being happy with apps. So
that's right.
If you like the booze, it makes it a little more fun, but you don't have to.
Absolutely. So absolutely.
It's fantastic either way.
And it's April.
Oh, it is April. Happy April.
We're getting a little silly. We have one little sip of our drink and we start getting silly.
That's what happens. Okay, but this is
I know that, Bradley, you have a ton of information to share with us, so we're going to let you just dive right in. And you just tell me when to advance your slides.
Will do, and I'm going to move as quick as I can. So this is a topic I love to talk about because I think it's one of the most important topics for nonprofits, and that is managing your donors and managing the life cycle of your donors and getting to a place to where you're building a good relationship. And oftentimes it needs to be a one-to-many relationship with your donors, right? Like as your organization gets larger, or if you're an accountant working with, nonprofit professionals, one of the things that you'll find is they got into doing their work typically because they're passionate about the cause. And then what they realize is now they have to raise funds and manage a business, you know? And so I think like one of the things I'm passionate about is helping nonprofits think of simple ways to better engage with their donors, because that is the lifeblood of your, nonprofit organization. So if you move to the other slide, the next slide, sorry, I keep, shaking my desk here. I'll stop slamming.
I want to just chime in for a second really fast and just say that you just hit the nail on the head, is that a lot of these not-for-profits, they don't look at their company as a business, and it needs to be run as a business. And so as accounting professionals, and awesome apps like you, it's up to us to help them to see that. So love that.
Yeah. And that's the thing we get to a place to where there becomes a little bit of frustration around donor management. And I think this image kind of shows it, and I should have made it a little bit more jumbled. But what typically happens is we talk to so many organizations who are using QuickBooks, Eventbrite, MailChimp, and then a tool like CrowdRise, which is like a peer-to-peer tool specifically built for nonprofits like GoFundMe. And what they're ending up doing is their central database or their system of record is an Excel sheet. And we just talked about all of the different issues that can come with that. And then they're moving data from system to system, and they're importing and exporting and they miss out on getting their PayPal transactions into QuickBooks, and all of those different things that end up becoming a headache. And it's a lot of information, and ultimately, unless you're an accountant like most of you guys, like the actual nonprofit executive director or leader oftentimes doesn't know how to run a pivot table in Excel or in a CSV to be able to get meaningful reporting out. And so they're just kind of scanning through trying to figure out who they should reach out to. And so if you'll go on to the next slide, that's really why Kindful was built. Our CEO was working and helping a nonprofit organization try to solve this issue. They had a lot of these type of tools, and he went out to the market and said, there's got to be some sort of solution here because we want to keep using MailChimp. We have beautiful emails in MailChimp. We love the Eventbrite experience for our events. Our accountant will never let us move away from QuickBooks. And, and then, maybe we're doing some peer-to-peer stuff in CrowdRise. And, I'll add that these are just a few integrations we have. We have over 42 integrations. And so you can bring in things from Constant Contact, Emma, Eventbrite, Classy, CrowdRise, all kinds of different solutions and a slew of fundraising solutions. And then they all come into a central database that Kindful has built that is really keeping donors and transactions in mind. So if you'll click over to the next slide, I don't have time to give everyone a full demo. And just so everyone understands, Kindful, can stand alone without QuickBooks. We're not an app that relies just on QuickBooks, but we have over 700 of our accounts have QuickBooks Online or desktop integrated with the software, right? And so, and I think the big thing, I was at Scaling New Heights earlier last year, and one of the things I kept saying to accountants was, it's really a solution to keep the nonprofit employees out of QuickBooks and in a tool where they can run reports like if you've worked with any nonprofits, you may know about a LIBUNT or SciBunt report. LIBUNT is given last year, but not this year, right? And so what I want to dive into, this is just a look at what it looks like when you log into Kindful. This is our dashboard. It's the first thing you see. And Heather, if you can click on to the next slide, I zoom in and just show this acquisition, retentions, and upgrades. So this is our donor lifecycle insights or metrics that we provide right on the dashboard. And I want to spend just a few minutes going through why we believe it's so important to track these metrics so closely. And so if you click on into the next slide, I'm going to just kind of review what is the donor lifecycle really quickly, and then just give some quick tips about how you can make the most of it. So the donor lifecycle, really what we mentioned is it comes up with three different places, or three different major stages. It's acquisition, retentions, and upgrades. And the most healthiest organizations that we find using Kindful focus on all three of these. And most all nonprofits know you got to focus on retention, right? You've got to figure out how to keep people donating to your organization. But if you're not also focusing on acquisition, and also trying to find strategies to get people to potentially give you more each year when it makes sense, then you might be missing out on some really big opportunities to grow your nonprofit and ultimately grow your mission. And so if you'll click on to the next slide, this is what we typically see. Like a lot of times organizations are kind of in the cyclical pattern, right? They kind of do the same messaging every year. And so if you think about this kind of as a year, right, like they invite their whole database to their event. They send their whole database the same appeal. They do the same, and they treat their whole database as just one message. And I think if you go on to the next slide, the thing that I would encourage nonprofits to think about is, this is more of a linear path and more of a journey with your donors, versus being something that is specifically, cyclical so much, right? And that you're trying to advance people through the process. And so ultimately, one of the things we encourage nonprofits to focus on is, how are you focusing on contacts before they become a donor, right? How are you doing things like that? All the way to a lifelong donor and advocate, all the way to someone who's actually has estate planning with your organization, right? So how do you move through that process?
And I love this because thinking about the donor life cycle, so people do join and donate for different reasons. So I love being able to see a plan and a path to why would that person sign up? Why are they a part of it? Why would they continue to be? And how to make sure that they don't just linger off and find something else where they're more connected maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and it really starts to give meaning to your communication when you start to think about where is someone in the path. And so if you click one more time, I think what you'll see is a couple of different variations of this pop up. So if you deal a lot with volunteers or major donors, you may actually have a different communication path for those individuals. You know, if you have a major donor that's given for the first time, or someone who's shown interest in your organization, maybe been referred to someone else from another major donor, you may have a specific path for them that you want to think through.
And this is so true. I mean, with the not-for-profits that I sit on the board, a lot of our conversations are exactly about what you're talking about here, is how do we get our existing donors and the people that care about our cause to become more engaged without burning them out, right? Because you have to be very, very mindful of who's getting which message. If you have somebody that just gave you, $25,000, you don't want an email to go out the very next week that says, hey, we're doing a new drive. You want to give it some time. And so having the ability to look at the data and identify, the different types of donors and where they are in that donor life cycle is super important.
That's right. And so, and Heather, if you'll click on to the next, skip the next slide and go on to the next, I'll jump right into the quick tips. Oh, I want to stop at this one. I love this slide. Sorry, I have to.
I do too.
And so, we just gave those really nice linear paths of what a donor life cycle could look like. But this is what it more feels like, right? Like it's like a game of chutes and ladders. And I think ultimately what you're trying to do is just to identify key areas of the board game, right, if you will, that you're trying to really advance them to the next stage, right? And think about that because, we were talking earlier, I think on my next slide, I start to talk about a couple quick tips for acquisition. And, you may not want to send someone if they are in the initial engage or their initial donation, a campaign to say, hey, do a birthday campaign for us, right? That might be too much right after they've only given their first donation, right? But someone who's been donating to you for the last 5 years, let's do a birthday campaign, right? You must love us. You must be really engaged with us if you've given to us the last 5 years in a row. Let's talk about how we could do a birthday campaign with you on Facebook or something like that. Someone asked about, the Facebook things in the chat. I think it's great. I think any way that you can bring more awareness to your organization is a great idea. The Facebook piece, if someone wants to email me specifically, it's got some gotchas. I would be happy to go over that individually. But
well, and I'm going to elaborate what you mean by a birthday campaign. So you're saying instead of giving me a gift at, like my grandmother's 92nd birthday, she doesn't want gifts. But she would love to know that everybody cares about her and that we gave to her favorite charity.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And you've seen it a lot probably on Facebook where people are saying, hey, instead of worry about giving me a gift, I'm just trying to raise $500 for this nonprofit, right? And there's ways to do it outside of Facebook, right? There's many organizations, like Kindful provides a peer-to-peer software within our software where people can give, and you could create a birthday campaign right in that, or your constituents could, and promote it on Facebook, and people could go right there and give in a secure fashion, right? So, yeah. And so a couple quick tips. I'm only going to, just for time's sake, I'm only going to hit on one off each of these pages real quick. But again, I'll hit on three here. We've kind of already hit it. But using crowdfunding, peer-to-peer, or advocate strategies to take advantage of your current constituent network, I think is huge, right? Like we all are so connected now with social media. If you're not finding ways to engage your advocates and being able to identify, number one, who your advocates are, like who are the donors who've been giving to you year after year, right? Then that to me is one of the biggest things you can do to help grow your following, grow your influence, get more donations from like-minded people, right, is using crowdfunding and peer-to-peer, and it's obviously great for events, right? If you move on to retention, the thing, number one here to me is one of the biggest things is tracking retention on a rolling 12 months. And so, again, if you're an accountant, you likely have had someone, and you work with nonprofits, you've likely had a nonprofit employee reach out to you and say, hey, we're trying to figure out who hasn't given to us this year that gave to us last year, right? And things like that. Kindful provides on that retention dashboard that we're showing, that little 12 people, it says 12 people have not given since April of last year, right? Or April of last year, right? And so they say, we haven't given since April of last year. These are 12 people you may want to reach out to. And the nice thing about that dashboard, it's a clickable number. You click it and it actually just shows you the 12 people, and it shows you their lifetime giving. So you can see this is the 12 people, and 2 of them have given are what we would consider major donors. The other 10 are people who've given, a couple $100. We're going to send them an email campaign. The 2, we're going to make sure our executive director calls them and, checks in with them. So, there's a lot there, but really making sure, and I was telling Liz and Heather, like my mom, for example, this understanding why they give at a certain time period. Like my mom is a cancer survivor. She went through cancer for 10 years, but she gives to an organization. She's only able to give about $25 a year, but it was an organization that really helped her. And she gives the same time of year every year when she found out she was in remission, right? And so that time period is really important to her. And so that's why she gives then. And so getting a reminder then could be important. Right?
Well, and this goes back to that timeline of retaining, so gaining and retaining your donors, so understanding their why. So part of being able to track all of your people, your donors in one place, allows you to see their trends. It allows you to see why they do something. You can even, contact them, make sure that time of year that they're engaged. Yeah. It's way better than an Excel sheet.
Yeah. Well, let me add one more thing. And what could be really embarrassing is imagine if you use only your PayPal report to figure out who gave this year and not last year, but someone just sent you a check, right? And you send them an email and say, hey, I noticed you haven't given for 12 months, right? Or whatever. And you try to send a re-engage campaign, but they actually did give, right? Or they typically give you a check and they gave online instead and you didn't catch that, right? That's not a good experience, right?
No.
And so,
there's not, and that's a huge pain point with these not-for-profits is keeping track of both the digital and the paper check donations.
All in one place, right? Mm-hmm. And so last thing is upgrades. And so upgrades to me is one of the most unique metrics. And so again, if you work in a nonprofit or you work with a nonprofit, one of the things you probably know is if your major donors have given more to you this year versus last year, right? Like you probably know that, right? What you may not know is, are your mid-level or lower level donors giving you more this year versus last year? And how impactful is it if someone who, like my mom, again, who she can't give a large amount, but she wants to give something, but she decides to give $50 this year versus $25 last year. And she gets a letter that says, hey, thank you so much for being willing to give us a little bit more this year. Like how impactful would that be, right? And so that's what our upgrade metric is people who have given more in the last 12 months than they did the previous 12 months. And they had to have given in the previous 12-month period. And so it really just allows you to spot opportunities outside of just your major donors to have more meaningful communications and impact when you communicate with those and build deeper relationships. And the last tip I'll give here is to really consider recurring donations. So one of the best strategies we see is people who typically give one time, let's say major appeal at the end of the year, to instead at that appeal time, if someone doesn't give again, to offer them an opportunity to give on a monthly basis versus one time a year. And so that to me can be a really great opportunity, not only to get them to continue to give, but if you have someone who gives $100 or let's say $1,000 per year, instead they give $10 or $100 per month, you're actually now getting more from them, and but it feels less impactful to their budget. And so it's a great way to upgrade people is to move them to a monthly recurring gift.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bradley. I mean, this was so helpful. I learned a ton, and this is such a great, I think this has been a great session. A lot of tips and tricks and insights into how we can help our not-for-profit clients be more successful. And Mallory's sharing, donation gifts too, like a free t-shirt or something like that, helping to identify who's going to get those gimmies, yes. Right?
Yep.
So definitely. So we're at the top of the hour, and we still have Liz and Heather's coolest thing this month. So for those of you that can stay on, definitely worth doing that. Liz, I think you told me this is really quick.
It is.
I'm going to share something that she did, and then we'll just have a couple of housekeeping slides, and then we'll send you guys off for the day. So let's go ahead and dive into your coolest thing, Liz.
Okay, so the whole thing, drum roll, it's in the clean up right for me right now. And so one of the things that happened, I had a client contact me and say, I was using QuickBooks Online, liked it a lot, and then my accountant said, but I don't use QuickBooks Online, so they wanted them to convert back to desktop. So they actually converted back to desktop. Heather, will you go to the next slide?
Of course, yeah.
So they went back to desktop, and then they said, we hate it. In fact, we would rather fire our accountant that we've been using for 10 years than to go back to desktop, which I was like, that's huge. So this is what happened. So they had a QuickBooks Online file that they actually had never deactivated. So this QuickBooks Online file was sitting over here. They bought QuickBooks Desktop, was entering all of the data in the desktop file, and they said, now we want to migrate back over to QuickBooks Online, and we're going to get a new accountant. So what I did was, let's go to the next slide.
Mm-hmm.
What I did was, in this client situation, they were only doing deposits, simple deposits, and checks. So expenses, either their debit card or truly checks. They weren't doing anything fancy with payments in AR or AP, just simple entries. So I was able to go inside of their desktop file, go to their balance sheet, filter down into that bank account, go to that bank account, register, export everything out of the register into Excel. And then once it was in Excel, I did some cleanup. And then let's go to the next slide.
Oh, yes, sorry.
That's okay. I love it that you're doing this. Hey, Vanna, could you advance me the next slide? Thanks. So then the next thing is then I took that Excel file after I'd cleaned it up, went to that QBO file, because remember they had this QBO file that had entries in it. Let's just say it was through the end of March. And so from April to December, well, now through a new April, so 12 months of entries needed to be updated. So I exported all of that, put it into bank feeds as a CSV file, and then I mapped it, and then you can go to the next file, or next slide, and did the bank feeds. So that's it.
And then you just have rules, and you just classify it all.
Yeah, so 12 months worth of data, they were fine. I get it. It's unusual that they had kept their QBO file subscription active that long, but this is great for even somebody who converts over for a little while to desktop and then says, no, not going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is great. This is great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That is really cool. So let's see. Mallory shared, to be successful, you need to adjust to change. So I hope that accountant learned eventually about the online program.
You don't know what happened. All I know is that they said bye-bye.
You can lead a horse to water, right?
Yeah. And, it's okay that that's not what that accountant wants to do, I guess, as long as they've got plenty of clients. But this is
that's awesome.
Yeah, if you run into somebody.
And I love that because you actually did your workaround actually didn't involve any apps, really.
It didn't.
Excel. Like you didn't need to use TPI, Transaction Pro Importer, or Z-Access. You were able to just totally do it with the bank you love.
Yep. So in this instance, I guess Excel was our app.
It's an app. It's an app.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. So
my favorite.
Yeah. So I'm going to toot my own horn a little bit. I actually updated our website, and I learned how to update websites. I was in there and playing and stuff. I have all kinds of extra time, right? But it was really fun. So our website got an upgrade. make sure you check it out. In our bar book, you can find recipes. In fact, what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag it over and show people, because I'm so darn proud of it, and show them where they can go to find. And I added something that you haven't even seen. Wait. Hold on. I got to move us out of the way so I can do this. There we go. Okay, so qbappyhour.com. So I added something that you haven't even seen yet. So if you go into the Appy Hour, you can go to our bar book, and our bar book is where you can read, get our drink recipes, and then learn more about our sponsors. So there's the Kindful Breeze, there's the recipe. You can even go out to the App Store and take a look at the information out there. We also have, I love this, Bradley provided us this donor lifestyle ebook that goes along with the presentation that he did today. So you can absolutely go and download this. Just click on it and it will go ahead and it'll download that PDF. And so you've got that going on. So please do go out and get that. Isn't that great? So we've got that going on. We also have the past episodes, and I heard feedback from all of you. We want your slides, Heather and Liz. We want your slides. So what I did this afternoon is now underneath each of our episodes, there's actually a place for you to download the slides. Okay, so if we didn't have a slide deck for that episode, you'll be able to go ahead and download the slides under the episode. You can watch it here. We have all of the recordings from every episode we've ever done, and now you can grab the slides here for that particular episode. Make sure you check out our blog. Our blog, which I've been sending newsletters, but we have a new blog article. It's actually going to post out in the next week from our partner Veeam. So make sure you're checking this out. We have a lot of information. Sometimes Liz will write something for Insightful or something for herself, and we'll share it out. Sometimes I'll write about something I'm interested in, and we'll add it to the blog. So and as always, feel free to reach out to us at any time, either via the website. Or just, send us a message on Facebook, because Liz and I both check the Facebook, pretty frequently. And then don't forget to visit our sponsor's website. I didn't do the poll, so I'm going to do that real quick. Let me get that up and running. There we go. So would you like Bradley to reach out to you to learn more about Kindful, and I will send him your information. He can do a demo. Bradley, you told me that the demo... you dig in, so it's a really comprehensive demo. So yes. Definitely answer that poll, and I'll send that over to you, Bradley. Join the QB Appy Hour Lounge Facebook group. So we have a Facebook group where we can interact and talk about apps. I do invite our app sponsors in there too. So if you have app-related questions, you can just ask right in the Facebook group, and then make sure that you register for Zoom so you can join the fun. And then our upcoming episodes, we have added a second monthly episode, and it's not every month. It's just it's not even every other month. It's when we had the availability. So our next episode is with Kelly Gonzalez. She's going to talk about her partnership with Veeam and handling international payments in QuickBooks Online. So we also have some really great episodes lined up through the end of June. So we really hope to see you guys on our on our future episodes. We love that you're coming to hang out with us, and we just love doing this so much. So again, a huge thank you to Bradley and to Kindful for coming on the show. This was amazing. I think this was one of our best episodes yet. So thank you very, very much for joining us.
Seriously, thank you for having us. We so love it. This is the second time on the show. We were on with the App Showdown folks.
That's right.
With Veeam, a few months ago. So we are always happy to join.
Awesome, fantastic, and I love your logo. So
I
far, the logo with the springtime colors, that just fits right in. Love it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, awesome. It draws a lot of people in. I'll make sure I send you guys a T-shirt.
Yay! I'm excited. So Mallory said that she learned a lot today. Thanks, Mallory, for joining. We hope to see you in 2 weeks. So we're going to do our next episode in 2 weeks on the 23rd, and we'll be with Kelly and Dean. So that'll be super fun. So I'm going to go ahead and end the polling, and I will send that off to you, Bradley. And a hearty thank you to everybody. Have a wonderful rest of the week. we're almost to the end. I'm heading out early. I'm heading on vacation Friday.
Have a fun time.
I'm gonna have a lot of fun. So
that just means that you're well prepared. So good job.
That's right. Okay. So bye, Bradley. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks,
All
everybody,
right,
for
take
joining.
care.
Bye.
Bye.